So, hello learners, I once again welcome you to the course of Environmental Economics. We've already taken an introduction of the subject of Environmental Economics where we have defined the subject. We have also talked about the subject matter approaches. We have understood the nature and the scope and significance. Today, we will be going through a very important aspect, that is, what is the interrelationship between economy and the environment. So, I am Dr. Aparna Samudra and I will be taking you through this course. Let us first see that what will be the learning objectives of this lecture. We will understand first of all that what is the link between economy and environment. Thereafter, we will discuss the material balance model and then we will understand the implications of the material balance model. So, let us have a look at the economy and the environment linkage. In the initial lecture of this course, we have already understood that how economy and the environment are interlinked to each other. We are saying that environmental economics is basically an attempt which studies the interrelationship between economic agents and the environment. All economic activities either affect or are affected by natural and environmental resources. So, whether it is production which is affecting environment or it is environment which is affecting production. So, it is a two-way process. So, economics is no more just about production, but it is also about considering the environmental impacts of the resource use. That is, economics as a science, it is about making choices because our wants are unlimited and the resources are limited. But in this choice set, now we also have to talk about those options which are more environment friendly when we are deciding about the allocation of resources. So, the analysis of economic activities like production, distribution and development must include environmental factors such as externality, which we have seen earlier, that is, it can be positive externality or negative externality. Someone's activity having an impact on someone else who is totally unrelated with that activity is externality. It may be pollution which is being caused by the production or consumption as well, the damage to the environment and the resource depletion. So, when we talk about your economy, what we are saying is that economic activities like production, distribution and development, they also now have to focus on the environmental factors. Now, let us understand the link between environment and economy. As we've just seen that environment provides economy with what? It provides it with the raw materials. Okay, and these raw materials are then transformed into consumer product through production process. So, we take raw material from the environment, we transform it as an economic activity and then it is given to the consumers where they consume it. So, environment then provides services which are used directly by the environment. That is, the environment is not only providing raw material for the purpose of production, which the consumers are going to consume in form of a finished good. Rather, environment also provides services which are directly used by consumers. Can you think of any services which we are as consumers directly taking from the environment? So, think about it. Then, also, environment is acting as a receptacle or a sink for all the waste products that are as a result of the process of both production and consumption. That is, environment is not only giving raw material for the purpose of production, environment is not only giving service to the consumers directly, but whatever we are producing or consuming, the waste generated is also going back in the environment. So environment is acting as a sink for the waste products. So this is a brief of how environment and the economy are linked with each other. Further, the economics and the environment can be very well understood by two models. Which are these two models? One is called as a circular flow model, which we do in macroeconomics. When we, for example, study the two-sector model or three-sector model of circular flow of income. So, understanding environment and economic activity linkage can be done, one, by the circular flow model, and second, which is a material balance model. So, in this lecture, we will be talking about both the models and understanding that how this material balance model is an adaptation of the circular flow model for the purpose of understanding environment. So, let me start with the circular flow model. What does a circular flow model shows? It shows the real and the monetary flow of economic activity through outputs and the factor market. That is, we are seeing the goods getting exchanged, production of goods happening and goods getting exchanged. So, it's a real flow as well as monetary flow. We see factors of production traveling from households to firms for the purpose of economic activity. So, when they go and work, it's a real flow. But when they go and work and get wages, that is a monetary flow. So, this circular flow model forms the basis of relationship between economic activity and environment. But even though it says that we are seeing a circular flow of resources from firms to the household and back from the household to the firms, but it does not explicitly shows that there is a linkage between economic activity and environment. This diagram will make it further clear to you. What do we see here? We see that there are two sectors which you see in these ovals. One is a household sector, other are firms. Who are households? Households are the suppliers of the factors of production. What do firms do? Firms are the ones which are converting the raw materials or the factors of production from the households into final goods and services. There is one output market, there is a factor market. Factor market means the market where land, labor, capital will travel from the household. So, this is a supply of resources from households and this they are going to the factor market and firms demand these resources so that they can do the production process. So, they are going to the firms. Okay, now firms when they employ these resources, they pay them certain cost. That cost may be in form of wages, they may be in form of rent, they may be a form of interest. So, this cost is then going back to the factor market, but this cost of the firm is actually an income of the households. So, in the factor market, we are seeing that there is a circular flow of income, there is a real flow of resources from household to the firms and there is a monetary flow of resources from firms to the households in form of a income. Another market in consideration we are saying is the output market. In the output market, the goods are being produced by the firms, so they are supplied in the output market. Who's going to buy? These are going to be bought by the households because households have a demand for these goods. So, we see goods supply in the output market by the firms coming back to the households because households are demanding. So, when households buy these goods and services produced in the output market, this spend means it is an expenditure. The expenditure of the households is a revenue of the firm. So, what is happening in this circular flow model is that for every real flow, there is a monetary flow. And everything is being consumed within this system. So whatever is being produced, whatever is being consumed is being taken care in this system. However, in this model, there is no mention explicitly of the environment. So circular flow model has this issue that this does not explain the material flow and the basic law of physics, which says that goods and services are produced out of something. Where from that something is coming and where to that something goes are not explained in this conventional portrayal of circular flow two-sector model. Everybody knows that we are going to produce something from something, but where is that something? Where is that something coming from? Where is that something going is not explained in this circular flow model. So that is a gap in the circular flow model when we try to understand it from the perspective of the environmental economics. Therefore, in order to improve this model, this circular flow model is modified and incorporated through an extension which is called as a material balance model. What is this material balance model? This model, this approach was given by Alan Kenisey and R.U. Ayers, and it is based on the first and second law of thermodynamics. Learners, you must be remembering now that in the previous lecture, we had said that environmental economics has a multidisciplinary approach. So see how this multidisciplinary approach is, that we are taking the models or the laws which are there in thermodynamics in order to explain environmental economics. What does the first law of thermodynamics says? It says that matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So matter and energy, whatever raw material we are taking from the environment, they can neither be created nor they can be destroyed. And what is the second law of thermodynamics? It says that nature's capacity to convert matter and energy is not unlimited. That is, there is a limit to it, to which nature can convert matter and energy. Okay, so let us see this material balance model with a diagram also. So, in the places where the circular flow model, which we have just seen in the previous slide, the last schematic shows link between economic activities and natural environment via two set flows. There are two flows which we will be talking. One is the flow of resources from the environment to the economy. That is, we are taking resources from the environment for the purpose of production and consumption. So that is one flow. That is an aspect of what we call as natural resource economics. Then after we take resources, we convert these resources. We convert these resources into goods and services, and the flow of residuals from the economy to the environment. So after we have consumed that resource, certain wastages are there, certain residuals are there. So they go back from the economy to the environment. And that is the focus of environmental economics. But in the material balance approach, we will be seeing natural resource economics as well as environmental economics. So as I just told you, these residuals which are a part of environmental economics are basically what? They are basically the pollution which remains from the environment after some process has occurred. We have used something, we have consumed something, something is wasted. We buy vegetables, we convert that vegetables into a finished dish, but we throw off the peels of that particular vegetable, so that is a waste. So that becomes a residual. Okay, so what do we say? That these residuals can be delayed, but they cannot be prevented. Okay, it is not that there will be no residual in the system. Residuals will be there, but we can delay the residuals which are throwing in the system. How? These residuals can be delayed through recovery, recycling and reuse. They are called as the 3 R's, as we call in environment. That is, we recover, some waste from the waste product something, we recycle the residue or we reuse it. So all these are also shown in this material balance model as the inner flows. So let us see this model. This model, this schematic diagram which you see, in the earlier diagram, if you remember, we had taken up till here only. That is, we had just taken households, we had taken firms, we had taken output and the market. So this is the initial model, two-sector model, which we discuss in traditional economics. But when we talk about the material balance model, another sector has come into picture, which is nature. Okay, so that's something which we had said, which was missing in the circular flow model, is coming from this nature. So initial diagram remains the same, that you have factors of production traveling from household to firms, goods are being supplied from the firms to the household, expenditure, income is taking place. But here what is happening is we are also seeing that how households are interacting with nature, how firms are interacting with nature. Okay, so what do we say? From the nature, natural resources are drawn by the households. They are consumed and residuals from the consumption go back to the nature. Similarly, residuals from the production are also going back to the nature. But as we have said, that these residues cannot be eliminated, but they can be delayed. How? By recovery, by recycling and reuse. So from the residue we recover something. For example, when we talk about composting the household waste, we are recycling it for the purpose, and that compost can go back to the factor market, because we are going to use factors of production to recover, recycle and reuse these residuals. Similarly, in the production of the firms, they also have certain residues, and these residues, again by the 3R process of reuse, recycling and recovery, they will go back to the factor market. So the material balance model is taking into consideration the role of a third sector, that is nature, to make us understand that what are we giving back, taking from the nature, and what we are giving back to the nature. Okay, using the available resources, let us say which are R, which we are taking from the nature, firms will produce, let us say, goods G. In this production process, certain waste may be generated, let us call it as W1. So this is the waste generated in the production process. Therefore, going by the first law of your thermodynamics, whatever resources we used, the production took from the environment, that R is equal to the goods which are produced plus the waste which has been generated in the production process. Households are also taking things, right? Now let us say household consumes all these goods G which are produced by the firms. In this production process, now households are not producing anything, they are just consuming. So when they consume these goods G, they generate some this waste W2. So W2 is the waste generated from consumption, whereas W1 is the waste which is generated from production. Again, using the first law, the goods, whatever the goods which were consumed by the households will be equal to the waste generated by these households. Or we can say that this R is equal to, since G is equal to W2, we can substitute the value of G in the first equation and get this second equation, which is saying that R is equal to W1 plus W2. So, the material balance model is basically concluding that natural resource extracted from the nature are returned back as the waste. Okay, but this is, as we just said, is the first law of thermodynamics, that the matter extracted from the nature has gone back in form of waste in the environment. So, this is called as the material balance principle. However, we also have a second law of thermodynamics, wherein we have said that there is a nature has a limited capacity to take this waste, and this is known as what is called as entropy law. What is entropy? Entropy is the measure of unavailability or disorderliness. Disorderliness is what is called as entropy. Now, whenever we talk about economic activity, we have said it converts low entropy material which are resources. Nature, whatever it gives us, it is more organized. It is more in an orderly fashion. So, economic activity is converting these low entropy material which are resources into high entropy ones which are waste. So, we are converting less disorder into more disorder. So, it says that overall entropy of the system will increase over time as your economic activity increases, and as our waste in the production as well as the consumption process increases, this overall disorderliness or this overall entropy in the system will increase. Hence, what is going to happen is that there will be higher environmental degradation. So, functions of the environment as per this model will hence be that environment is supplying renewable and non-renewable resources. Environment is also assimilating waste by either absorbing or dispersing them. And environment is also providing life support systems such as maintenance of genetic diversity and stabilizing ecosystem. When entropy increases, when disorderliness increases, when we are taking less, more resources which have less entropy and converting into through some economic activity into some good and not taking care of recycling, reusing, and then as entropy increases, the environment will have a capacity to take less of this waste, and then what we call comes is environmental crisis, because environment then fails to provide these functions. So what are the implications of this model? The one of the most important implication of the material balance model is that it will help us to manage the resources. Why? Because by tracking the material flow within the system, by knowing that how the resources are being used in the production process, how much consumption is taking place, how much waste is being generated, how much is being reused, how much is being recycled, it will allow us to do more efficient allocation of resources, reducing waste and optimizing production processes. It will also help us to do an impact assessment of the environment. It will enable us to assess that how far the resource extraction is taking place. What is the impact on the environment of this resource extraction? What is the level of production? What is the level of consumption? How this increased production and consumption of wasteful goods sometimes or sometimes conspicuous goods is leading to higher waste generation. And such information is vital for evaluating the sustainability of human activities and also making informed decision making. For example, these days we see a lot of e-waste occurring. Everybody is using electronic goods, but when they stop functioning, or when you feel that you don't no more need to use it, what happens to that? We never consider it, because they also contain certain very hazardous raw materials. So we really don't know what is happening in case of e-waste. So today, when we are focusing on more of going online, using more and more electronic devices, we are taking from the environment, but what we are giving back in form of e-waste is something which has very high entropy in it. So once we understand the certain things, this material balance model, we will be able to minimize this environmental harm. Also, it helps the government to design policies which are important for sustainable resource use, policies which are there for reduction in pollution and hence improving environmental qualities. So, implementing good recycling programs, incentivizing adoption of cleaner production technologies. For example, we see governments everywhere these days are promoting electronic vehicles. So, or promoting buildings which are climate friendly, which use less of energy, and more of solar energy. So they are ways of encouraging policies which lead to lesser and lesser of higher entropy material into the system. Then it also leads for efficiency improvement, wherein analyzing material flows helps organizations also to identify the areas of their inefficiencies in production process and reutilization. So how they can reduce the waste which they generate, how they can reduce the cost and enhance their competitiveness can also be understood through the material balance model. Then also, it gives a framework for the extent of resource use. It provides a coherent framework in which economic analysis of resource use and its environment can be placed. That is, whatever economic activity is taking place, it focuses on the stock flow relationship by that behavior and its importance with the relationship. Also, education and awareness. For example, when we teach our students and public that how economic activities and environment are related, material balance model gives a very good tool wherein they can very well visualize that how whatever we are taking from the environment, we are giving it back. So if we are giving more bad back, ultimately environment is going to degrade and we are going to get into an environmental crisis. So, let us just give a small recap of whatever we have done today. We have talked about in this lecture that every economic action has some impact on the environment and every environmental change can have an impact on the economy. So if we are using more pesticides, we are using more of groundwater for greater agriculture production, ultimately environment, we see a depletion in the groundwater, we see soil salinity which has an impact on a lower agriculture production and the growth of the economy. The interlinkage between environment and economy is very well depicted by the material balance model, wherein we have not only seen in the circular flow model the relationship between firms and households, but we have also talked about the role of nature in while we are taking from the nature and giving back to the nature, and how by giving following the second law of entropy, we are if we don't correct that, we are creating an environmental crisis. So that is all in this lecture. Thank you very much.